everybody, and welcome. You can hear me. I am currently on a road trip, going throughout the U.S. in my van, and I am in my van in the middle of Florida. So, okay, well, it looks like we're live. And Kathleen, nod if you can hear me.
I can.
There's a super bad lag. So that's why Kathleen and I are going to try. I am going to start the show by, updating everyone about what I've been up to besides living in a van. And then I'll pass it over to Kathleen. So just so you know why she's sitting there slightly mute. That's because we have a major delay we're sort of dealing with. But yeah, super excited to have designer and publisher Stephanie Kwok on the show tonight. We're going to bring her in about 7 minutes or so. So yeah, I have been on a road trip for the past month. I started up in Western Canada and I went down the west coast of the US all the way down to the south, all the way to San Diego, and then going across the eastern states, and now I'm all the way over in Florida. And along the way, I met up with Sarah Reed and Sarah Graybill, designers, Board Game Broads in Sacramento, and I chatted with them. And that's on the Board Game Broadscast YouTube channel now. So definitely check that out. It's a really great conversation about the projects they're working on and the way they approach design. It was really cool. I also met up with Emily LaRoche, another designer in Santa Clarita, and I chatted with her. That talk is also on the YouTube channel, which also, by the way, thanks a lot to Mary Cousin for helping us get over 100 subscribers. We now have our own URL. It's youtube.com/boardgamebroadcast, which is awesome. So, so cool. So yeah, I am actually literally in the middle of a forest. I'm in the basically the Everglades. I'm in the Big Cypress Preserve just north of the Everglades camping right now. So I am so happy that our Wi-Fi is working. But yeah, so continue on my trip up north, and I'm going to link up with Kathleen and other Board Game Broads in New Jersey for Playtest Fest in a few weeks, which I'm super excited.
Yes.
Just a bunch of broads playing prototypes all weekend.
Just playing prototypes. What are you doing?
Sweet. Yeah, what? Just a bunch of broads here, man.
What a bunch of broads here? Just making games here. What are you talking about? How you doing?
Yeah, what are you talking about?
What are you talking about?
And actually, a couple weeks before that, I am going to be at the New York Toy Fair because I can say that my next published game will be coming out with Outset Media. Fast. I know I've talked about it like a bunch on the show, but I can officially say that Outset Media are publishing it, and it's going to be launched at the New York Toy Fair. So I am going to be there for it, which is really cool. So I can see the actual printed product. So that's really exciting. The last thing I just want to say is that I'll be at Breakout in Toronto in March, and I will be hosting, sadly by myself, a Board Game Broadscast panel live in Toronto. Kathleen will be there in spirit. I'll wear super red lipstick just for you, for sure, just to have your spirit there. But yeah, so still finalizing the guests for that, but I will definitely be in a Breakout in Toronto in March. Those were all my updates for now. Kathleen, what have you been up to?
A bazillion things, but I'm sad that we can't just talk because you're in a forest by a river. So I'm busy. So the good news is all my 3 games are all kind of in the strongly maybe moving forward kind of thing. Ragnarok with Colossal. They're having to completely redesign it from a production standpoint, literally how the game is laid out. And so the good news is they really want to make it. So I'm hoping that works out well. I am shipped off a prototype, my little circular spacey racy game that has gone off to the publisher as of 2 days ago. And so I'm super hopeful that the changes they wanted me to make that we've been talking about, that they're happy with it. And so that's super good. And then my other game, Valkyrie, is being considered by It's with a few different publishers. So hopefully I'll get some good news on that one, or at least some really productive feedback. So that's good. I was talking with Pam, like, I need to come up with another game. Like, I'm not necessarily someone who's like ideas, or at least I am, but like it takes a while to find one that like really like propels me forward, because I am busy pants and it's got to be good. But I've got one that I think might be a good idea. I don't know. So we'll see. And then tomorrow, though, I'm actually pretty excited because I get to talk to education majors at a local university, about 200, and they want me to talk about gamification. And I'm not going to talk about gamification, but I am going to talk about how instructional design and game design are so closely paralleled. And so if teachers want to use more game design in the classroom, to use what they know about instructional design to help them inform and make games. And since making games is really hard and long and time consuming, I'm actually going to be talking about a lot of party games and how they can adapt those to the class as sort of like get your feet wet in terms of like game design stuff. And then from there, if they want to, go into bigger, better games, and not even sort of better, but if they want to do something that's more immersive, especially if they want something more like simulation based or whatever, then kind of giving them some pointers and tips in terms of where to go. Gamification, when people talk about that, they usually mean overlaying some sort of like gaming structure, like World of Warcraft. Like you get, XP when you turn in your homework, and if you're late, then you lose XP and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And so it can be really motivating. It can be hard to fail in those situations. It can be hard to be intrinsically motivated when there's so much coming from the outside. And honestly, like if it's not done well, it's just sort of a reward system. So I think if someone's committed to it, it can work out really well. But generally speaking, I'd much rather people look at their actual instruction and make that worthwhile and engaging and fun. And I think by doing game-based learning, because it's hard, like I teach game design, and that's really, really rare. And so it's been really good actually for me, like in doing all the research and prep for this, to kind of polish up my skills and knowledge as far as the gamification side goes. So as always, Busy Pants McGee, looking very much forward to hanging out in a few weeks. I'm super excited about that. And also on Pam's road trip, you were in Arcata, Northern California, like 2 weeks after I was there, like literally on the same viewpoint. And that's like, I'm in Missouri. That's super far away, but literally we were in the same viewpoint in this like pretty small little town in Northern California, a few weeks apart. So did you find a little note I left for you?
I wish I had known.
Oh, well, man. That's awkward. Okay, well, there was $3,000 stuck into it, but whatever. If you didn't get it, it's fine. It's fine. Maybe some other person living in a van can use it. It's cool. They probably could get a hotel room tonight.
We
had Wi-Fi issues.
I'm super excited to meet IRL.
Pamela's having some Wi-Fi issues because of her van.
These are the lag issues we're talking about.
Van issues in her forest in Florida. Okay, cool. Well, do you know what's about time for Stephanie?
Yeah, we're going to meet in real life, and we won't have a lag in real life at Playtest Fest, so that'll be very exciting because we met in real life once before. So
she hates all my ideas.
Hopefully we don't talk like this in real life.
We do talk like this in real life. All right.
Yeah, so let's bring in our guests.
Yay, Stephanie!
So, who's joining us?
If we can get the time. It worked!
Hey!
Hey, Stephanie.
Hello.
Thank you for being on the show and dealing with all of our not problems, but opportunities, really.
I love watching the lag reaction.
Well, especially because you and I don't have a lag, but the certain person who's the Canadian and the Floridian Canadian is struggling a bit, which is kind of awesome. So you're with a game company called First Fish, and you've been involved with 3 projects, and your own solitary design was just on Kickstarter. So congratulations. That's awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah. What does it feel like to like kind of like knock that off the list as far as like my own game?
It was really good. It was truly a passion project because the theme it was about ducks, and
Mhm.
I am kind of obsessed with ducks. And anyone who knows me knows that I love ducks. So
Mhm.
it kind of fit really well into checking off many boxes, I guess. Like
You're
not just my
probably
own solo design, but like my dream theme in a game.
well, and you're also probably the only person then who doesn't get mad at autocorrect, right?
It
Just kidding.
started out that way.
Because you'd be like, "This is my ducking game. It's cool."
Yeah.
Okay, so there's been 3 projects that you said you've been working on. So what are the so your game company's First Fish? What are the 3 projects that your company have worked on to date?
Our first game we did in 2017, Kickstarter. It's called Get Off My Land, and it was a co-design with me and my 2 other partners, Gordon and Liam.
Mhm.
And so that was a crazy experience because we were learning everything basically from scratch.
Oh, nice.
Not just on the design side of things, but also publishing as well. And we decided to publish our own games and actually like move forward with a publishing company because we're all control freaks.
Well, I was gonna say what made you make that decision then to self-publish as opposed to go out to other publishers? Or what's the appeal for self-publishing for you?
It mostly comes down to I want to control everything. So I don't want to hand it off to someone else and, not have any say or anything like that. This way I can do whatever I want with it.
Yeah.
Like make my own game.
Yeah, no, that's cool. I mean, you don't have to, retheme anything or take out any mechanics. Like what you want the game to be is what the game is.
Exactly.
That's super cool. And so when did you start working on Ducks in Tow?
Ducks in Tow was actually a severely rushed design because we wanted to keep doing at least one Kickstarter a year. And we were just at the, I guess, end of 2018. And we were like, well, we don't have another game lined up and we need something quickly. And so we were like, okay, whose design is furthest along right now? That's the one we're going to push forward. And I was like, well, I have this idea, and we tried it and it totally didn't work. Ducks in Tow started as a dexterity game where you threw cubes onto the board and then you moved a duck around to try and eat the food. But it was really hard. And so we eventually moved away from the dexterity aspect just because we tried to keep it for a long time because that's the part everyone enjoyed the most. But it was way too hard to keep it because there's no way to balance that part, and it just didn't work.
Yeah.
So
one of my games is dexterity, and it has 4 different types of dexterity action. So yes.
Yeah.
Got it.
Yep.
That's cool.
It turned into a pick up and deliver set collection kind of game, which I think works much better for it.
So when you're working on a game design, what is it like that signals to you, yes, this is a good idea. Yes, go forward here. What does your inner sort of judge? How does that work for you as far as the decisions you make as a designer as you push a game forward?
Yeah, I think it's probably really different for us than just a designer who doesn't.
Go on.
Like we think of the publishing side as well. So our problem is that we always think of theme first, which is probably a really bad idea.
I don't think so, because that's the first thing people see, and if you've got a theme that draws people in, that gets them to pick up the box, some people buy just based on theme. That's okay.
Yeah, and I've bought games purely based on artwork before, so.
Right.
Yeah, and so because Gordon and I are both artists, we always build the theme first. We build the look. We know what we want it to look like, and then we go off of that. So it's very different from your standard design, steps, I guess.
Right. Are there any trade-offs you think you've made on designs for the publishing side of things that maybe you wouldn't have?
Maybe. Yeah, not really.
I'm just curious because like I'm just someone who, I'm not a control freak. When publishers are like, we want to change this and this, I'm like, yeah, that sounds good. It's cool if you want to make it. It's your product at this point, So and like it's just different perspectives,
Totally.
Yeah. I had a really good question, then I started talking about myself, so there's that. Shock. Weird. You and you said Gordon or Liam are artists?
Gordon, my boyfriend.
Okay.
We're both artists, yeah.
I'm just kidding. Well, what's that like working with your partner on a game?
It's fine. When we worked like our full-time jobs, we were at separate companies. We have the same position, like we do the same thing, but we were always at different companies, so we never really like worked together. So for game design, I actually like it. It's good to bounce ideas off each other, and we're both really open about each other's ideas, and we're willing to try each other's ideas. Even if we may think it's crazy, we'll still try it.
Yeah.
Because we know the intention is good, right? So it's like, even if I think your idea is crazy, I'll still try it because you just want to make my game better.
Right. So let's see, for the other ones, Get Off My Land and then Town Builder, what type of role did you have for those games? Just co-design, or were you, or in all of your games is just everybody involved at all steps of the process?
No. Usually, Gordon did the artwork for Get Off My Land, and he did all the art assets for Kickstarter and everything. But running the Kickstarter, all the social media stuff like that is all me. Like, I run the Kickstarter, I do the Kickstarter page, I handle all the comments and everything. I do fulfillment, I do manufacturing. I deal with everything on the back end, basically. So that's why I said it's my full-time job, but I'm not being paid yet.
Right. Pam?
Yeah. So just so everyone understands why I'm like this creepy mute ghost in the corner is because I have a major leg and they don't, so I'm just gonna mainly let them chat. But I will jump in every now and then when Kathleen prompts me. So I would be very curious to sit in your studio with 3 control freaks trying to just make decisions. It's really interesting. But it seems to work for you, so that's really great. I find that really difficult, giving my game over to someone else and just let it go. But I agree with Kathleen, where it's just kind of like, hey, you want to make it? Cool, do whatever you want. But it would be nice to have control over how it looks and all that stuff. And your games look great. So, but my question, you were talking about your Kickstarter. Do you have any sort of lessons learned? I think this was your first one, if that's right. Any lessons learned or any tips you could give for someone who wants to run their own Kickstarter?
The biggest tip we learned on our first Kickstarter is to not rush it. We set a date and we felt like we had to launch on that date. And we were too rushed. We didn't have time to, double check everything. And we ended up having to cancel just so that we could fix some numbers. Because we're a Canadian company, the exchange rate is what messed us up. And so all our numbers were off. So everything looked really expensive to our American friends. So we had to fix it. And so yeah, we had to cancel and then relaunch just to make it look more inviting at a lower price point than like the Canadian dollar.
Huh. When it comes to your game company, do you feel like after 3 games you have sort of like a brand or sort of like a defined sort of sense of what a first fish game is?
No, definitely not. I think our first 3 games are kind of just like get people to know us. Mm-hmm. They don't really have anything to do with each other or anything like that. We just want to let people know, hey, we're here, and we make good quality stuff. And then eventually, like future projects, then that's when we're gonna, sit down and try to like fit more games into a more similar, world or whatever. That would more be what we're trying to aim towards.
Yeah. So it's in ducks in tow. So as far as you said, it was started as dexterity, and then it went to a pick up and deliver set collection sort of game. For you, what was the most, like fun part about designing it, or the part that you're most proud of?
I think I wouldn't say I'm proud of it.
What?
The worst part was we thought of a name. Mm-hmm. Or Gordon thought of a name, and we absolutely loved it. It fit perfectly with the game. We built mechanics around the name, and then a month later we checked it and it's already trademarked, which was super upsetting. So that's a lesson learned.
Yeah.
But then we changed it, and we actually so what we wanted to use was ducks in a row. So the reason it fits so well was because you have your little meeple, and there's a tray behind the meeple that fits all the ducks. So it looks like they're following you. And then also on your cards have like the duck symbols that you're trying to get in a row. So the name fit really well with both like aspects of it. So when we had to change it, we were trying to like not change it too much. So it became ducks in tow. And then the tagline is get your ducks in a row. Close enough.
Right, sure. So what do you mean though when you say you're not proud of it? What do you mean by that?
I mean, I'm not proud of not checking. Like I should have known better to check right away, because that actually happened on our first game. We chose a name and it was trademarked. And so we had to change it. So I should have learned my lesson then.
Yeah, that's fair.
But I made the same mistake. The game itself, yeah, I'm really proud of it. I'm really happy how it turned out. Everyone that's played it really enjoys it. Thinks it's, simple but clever kind of thing.
Right.
So yeah, it's good to hear that kind of feedback.
Right, especially when you've been working on something that, is so hard. All 3 of your projects, would you say that they're passion projects?
No.
So what is it? What do you do when you're working on is it easier for you to work on a project that isn't a passion project, or is it easier to work on the passion project?
It's definitely easier if it's a passion project.
Okay.
Like the motivation is like 110%. Also because it was like a solo design as well, so it's not like, it's not like I didn't have any help designing it. Like obviously I did, but to have just one name on the box is like a big deal.
Yeah.
So
well, that's exciting. I can get that. I've got I just had to send off to a publisher this week a prototype, and it's one that was started with Mark Selmeyer, who my friend, who and it was a game I didn't like, and so then I came on board. Mark's my ex-boyfriend. It's all fine, but just weird. Anyway, so it's fine. Like we still live in the same house, so it's totally fine. Anyway, we're friends now. Anyway, I don't know if that needed to be explained, but just it's like awkward if people have heard me say something before. Everything's fine. Anyway, but it's interesting because we have very different design processes, and there are times where I'm just like holding my face trying to explain something, or I'm sure likewise the same for him. And at one point, a friend of ours wanted to do like a proto STL event here in St. Louis and wanted Mark and I to do a session on co-designing. I was like, no, we don't co-design very well. I mean, we did it, but it's there's definitely a difference for me in terms of working with someone, obviously, versus on your own. With someone is great. You can bounce ideas off of, you can do all that. But on your own, at the end of the day, you get to decide for good or for bad what you do.
Yep.
And especially being, I guess, a little bit of a control freak too, I suppose, myself. I just want to run a business. I have no interest in that. That's pretty funny. So what kind of projects would you want to pursue moving forward?
We have this grand plan of building a world, like a super fantastical world. It's kind of around the diesel punk era, but it's gonna have. We still want it to feel like the real world, like there's still farming and fishing and all your standard stuff, but there's also flying whales. So, yeah, we've been thinking about it for a long time. I mean, Gordon's done a whole bunch of sketching and how the whales will look and what the world will look like and breaking all of that down. And then currently we have a couple of designs going. Gordon has one design, I have a design, and Liam has a design. And then we've also contracted out to other designers as well.
Wow.
So we want the world to be big enough that we can fit multiple games into this world. So that's what I mean. Like our first 3 games were kind of like testers, and then now we're like getting serious and really trying to build something big. So that's
cool.
What's coming up.
Pam, do you have a question?
I do. That's really cool. Will there be any sort of accompanying like books or graphic novels or anything to go along with this world? Because I know you have a background, you are an artist and you have a background in visual effects. Like, is that feeding into all of this?
We would have some kind of like art book, like explaining the different like plant life and sea life, or all that. The main draw to this world is that there's no oceans. Instead of oceans, it's mist. So there's like floating rocks and flying whales and stuff like that. So you can still dive as if it were an ocean, but it's all mist. So anything down there would be like fungi or whatever, like spore-like things instead of water. So we will eventually like rename everything. Like right now my design is like a fishing game. So right now all the names of all the fish and the fishing equipment and all that are all based on real world things. Like I don't know, herring or lobsters or whatever, but eventually all of that is going to change into our own little creatures that we design for this world, and those will all be in one big book with artwork and little descriptions and stuff like that.
Cool. Huh. Well, it's
That's
interesting.
Really cool. And we actually have a question from our viewer, our one viewer.
There's more on YouTube.
Hey, Helena,
don't worry. Oh, Helena, hey.
Helena says, Helena Capel, also a designer and publisher. So Stephanie, you do both, and Helena also does both. And she says, it seems that you begin with theme a lot, and you mentioned that earlier. And she's wondering if you think you'll ever design a with a mechanism specifically in mind first.
It might happen. There are certain mechanics that I love that I want to incorporate somehow. I just haven't been able to yet. My all-time favorite game is Lords of Zidit, which is not really that well known, but there's a pre-programming mechanic in that game that I absolutely love. It really it forces you to, pay attention to what your opponents are doing, which is basically how I play games anyways.
Right.
So that mechanic, I've actually tried to implement it into a couple designs now, and it just hasn't worked yet. But that is definitely like one that I want to eventually have in a game.
Well, and especially since your world is so like thematically rich, I can understand why, if you really want to build that, establish that, make that something, that's like really well understood by people who start to buy into this world and the games. I could see why you would have that drive. It'll be interesting if there's ever, like how robust the world is, if there's a game that you want to put in that, maybe breaks your own laws, like how defined for you is this world at this point? I think it's such a fascinating idea, especially when I like to think about, theme as far as like what's something that excites me, and then, work that way as far as game, because I really love like really well integrated themes and mechanics. And so, how robust is this world, and like how much, have you like established boundaries for it yet?
A little bit. Yeah. We know, certain limitations of this world, and, how far you can dive, or what's in the sky, or, like barely anything. Everything is kind of mid-level in this one zone where everything has the ability to float. If the whales go outside of that boundary, they either sink or they float back up. Like they can't actually dive or fly upwards. They have to stay in this middle ground for some reason. This area allows them to fly. So
why whales?
I don't know.
No, I love whales. Like if I could see an orca in the wild, like trust me, like when I was in Iceland, I was like looking hard, no orcas for me ever, and I mean and I've been whale watching, and they're amazing, giant, like these incredible creatures, especially when you see them, for us the ocean is so vast, and for them, Chile might be basically next door, a very different sense of size, space, perspective, and especially since they're so gigantic and you only think of them as being waterborne, to have them to be able to float is something that's obviously, such a huge shift in terms of how I think. And I think if the world is something where even giant whales can float, what else is possible? And I think that's, for me, super interesting.
Yeah. So like the whales, like they are based off real world whales, but then, they might have, some extra flippers, or the fishing rigs go on the back of the whale, for example, so they can be like a transport of some sort, or that kind of thing. Like they're basically the ships of the world.
Yeah. What is your process like as you work on a design from like early stage conception through? Is there anything that's particularly notable or helpful for you as you begin to work through a game, or as you continue to?
Right now our biggest thing is table presence. So we try to think of something in this world that will really draw people's attention. So obviously flying whales will draw attention.
Well, I mean, do you think that could be a challenge though, if you've got a world that's so three-dimensional, to represent that in a flat game?
Yeah. Yeah. But I mean, if we bring it to life successfully, then it will be really like super eye-catching. But definitely there will have to be some 3D components and stuff like that.
Which is super fun. And when you have a really crazy kind of, design parameter, that's when that's when you're going to really like stretch yourself and probably come up with something that's never been seen before as far as like a, what we could do is kind of moment. And those are just like the best.
I wonder if I put my phone up to the camera, can you see that whale?
Oh, yeah. Oh, that's so cool. What's on his back?
Like fishing rigs.
Oh, cool. So they're riding on him.
Yeah.
Or her.
Oh.
That's very cool.
Yeah, so Gordon did that artwork.
Wow.
Yep.
And that's really nice to have, like, that talent of art design in-house, both for yourself and from your partners too, especially when you can really see what you want it to be as far as not just like, here's my lines on loose leaf as I'm kind of mocking up the idea, but to really flesh it out. It's got to be really exciting to see it come to life like that.
It's also a problem though, because I make all my prototypes probably too like high quality that I spend so much time making something that I'll just like change the next day.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and that's I run into that with my students. I really push them, to go fast out of good, fast, and cheap. I really push them to go fast and cheap. And it's so anathema to everything where it's like, normally when they get a project, you do one thing, you spend a lot of time on it, you make it look really good, you turn it in, that's it. And this is a totally different approach to things. And because what I found over the years is if I let them have too much time, they would make them too pretty and then they wouldn't let it go. They would hold on to the bad idea. And I don't blame them. If I had them do 3 weeks on something and say, okay, now change this, I don't blame them at all. That's why they only get like a few days nowadays. Yeah.
Yep. That's an ongoing problem for me, is overbuilding my prototype.
Well, that's cool. Pam, do you have a question?
I super feel you on that. I definitely make my prototypes look. I spend too much time. They don't even look good. I just spend too much time making them and building them before testing them. And I know, and I tell people too, like when I talk about game design, I'm like, make it as quickly as possible, get it to the table as quickly as possible. But I struggle with that every single game. Like even a couple of weeks ago, I had this idea for a game because I'm going to New York Toy Fair. I'm like, well, I have to come with like 5 new game ideas. So I've been trying to generate ideas, and so I had this idea. It was like a river, so it's like a piece of fabric going around a table, and then one person is like pulling fabric to make it go fast around the table like a conveyor belt, and then another person is throwing things in the river so they float down the river really fast. Okay. So and then you're trying to like the other players things out of the river. And so I literally was going to like sew this river fabric thing, and I got all the things. I spent like $30 at Dollarama, and then I just talked about the game with my brother and my sisters, and they're just like, no. And so I feel you on that. So good even just to talk about it before you spend time or money on your prototypes. Anyway, that's my question. So now we're talking about so building your prototypes and then play testing. So where do you like to play test your games? I know you're based out of Vancouver. Kind of asking for myself because I'm going to be spending a lot more time in Vancouver. But I'm just curious what the playtesting scene is like there, or what your playtesting process is.
I playtest with 2 different groups. There's one group, the Game Artisans of Canada. You may know some of the designers like Jay Cormier and with the Roxley team and all that. So the Vancouver group meets once a week. I think like 4 hours. We all meet at a store, play, like whoever has games will bust it out and play it. And then, so that one I find is more experienced. designers, just because we do have a few people with published games and whatnot. The other group I playtest with is called Vancouver Playtest, and they meet at Rain City Games every second week, and they're more casual. I feel like I don't think any of them have something published, but they all like work really hard, basically the same. It's just they don't have the experience of getting a game signed yet. But they did put together basically a speed dating event at the last Shut Up and Sit Down convention, which was really helpful for all the new designers who had never, pitched to a publisher before. They got the chance to try that out and do that. We were there on the publishing side, so we got to hear all their pitches and see all their games and stuff. So that was super cool. Other than that, I do testing at my own house, I guess. We invite a bunch of friends over. You're like, here's a prototype, please try it. Tell me if you hate it.
Totally. Yeah, you gotta use all the resources that you have. And you mentioned that you attended the convention with your publisher hat on. So you kind of go in between sort of the two, designer and publisher. How do you sort of balance, because those are two pretty big roles to have in the industry. How do you balance doing both?
I think I would put myself as a publisher first. If I attend any event, it's as a publisher, not as a designer. Mainly because if I am designing, I'm going to be the one publishing it anyways. Like, I'm not going to sign it to another company. Very, very, very unlikely. But yeah, so I don't see it as a big difference. Like, I'm mostly a publisher when I go to events. Oh.
And Kathleen, I don't know if you're asking a question. If you are, I can't hear you.
Yeah, I can't hear Kathleen anymore.
You Okay. No, we can't hear you. I think you may be muted. Okay, so that's all right. So I'm gonna take over, and I'm just gonna wait a second before I ask your next question. So as a publisher, what do you look for when you get pitches from designers? What are some tips that you can give designers to give a good pitch to a publisher?
That's hard because we are pretty new. So it's not like we get flooded with, pitches or designs or anything like that. So it's hard for me to say I don't have much experience on that side of things. If people do come to us with their game designs, it's usually through email. And if they do come and see us at a convention, normally we don't really have the time, because usually we don't have a lot of booth help, so we're stuck at the booth basically the whole time. So I basically ask them to email me anyways.
Right. That makes sense. So you mentioned that you will be, is it only fair? Yes, that's true. It is true. It's only fair that also Kathleen has technically. It wouldn't be a board game broadcast if we weren't dealing through these things, but we work through them. We work through them. That's what we do. No, that's great. So I guess I would like to know a bit more about, you mentioned that you will be publishing other designers' games, like you have some projects coming up that were designed by other designers who approached you with their games. Can you tell us sort of what made you decide, yes, this is something worth investing our time and our money in bringing to the market?
Right now, I mean, Town Builder was one that we signed, and we had play tested it, years ago. And at that time, he was planning to Kickstarter himself, and then he found out it was a lot of work, so he chose not to do it himself. And so years later, we are like, hey, what are you gonna do with that? And like, because we really liked the game, we knew it was a solid design. We ended picking it up because we thought it would be a really strong game to sell. So right now, we don't have any designs from other designers that we have signed. It's more like we have asked other designers to design something for our world. So we provided them with artwork and the story and all the different things that we have in mind for this world. And so then they can build something based off the world. So it's kind of backwards, a backwards contract.
Right. How did you pick which design to approach for your project?
We are choosing Canadian designers first.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Definitely designers that designers that are already known. So it will be a bit of a challenge as well, because we don't want to disappoint them because they're already well known, right? We want to do a really good job bringing their game into our world and making it, really good. So it's a bit of pressure as well.
Right. How so far creating separate games for within this universe? Yes, yes, yes. I do know Kathleen does love Canada. She wishes she was Canadian. She wants to get married so that she would be Canadian, but we'll see what happens.
I bet a lot of Americans wish they were
so,
Canadian right now.
It is very true. It is very true. A lot of Americans I've met on this road trip have said so. But yeah, so I'm just curious how it's been having different designers creating different games within the world, trying to create a cohesive sort of universe. Like, how are you managing that to make sure things still kind of work together, but their own different, unique subset?
Yeah, I think the easy part of that is that everything is still very like set in real life. Like, a lighthouse still does what a lighthouse does. Farmers still do what farmers do. Like, it's not like we're making up anything crazy new. It's just that it will all have the same artwork, the same fantastical creatures, or things like that. But overall, it's not like I need to be able to tie in things that don't exist in one game into another game, because it should all fit together because it's all set in the real world, kind of.
No, that makes a lot of sense, and yeah, that's okay. No worries, Kathleen. I mean, you did the heavy lifting for the first half of the show. I think this is just the universe now putting it back on my shoulders, which is totally fair. No, I'm really excited about this world. I love the idea of the flying whales. I love that visual that you just showed us. If that's just a little part of what it's going to look like, I'm really excited to see what it's going to look like. I just love the idea of collaborating with a bunch of different designers, Canadian designers, to come up with different games that work within the world. I think that's really, really cool. And I look forward to seeing it develop and come to life. I think that's really great. We are approaching the end of the show. So can you let people know where they can find you if they want to stay up to date on all these awesome projects?
The easiest would be Facebook probably. First Fish Games. We do most of our major postings there. I mean, we do have a website, but it's more like a reminder of what we have. We don't. There's no blog or anything like that. So Facebook is where we do all of our social media things. And conventions. We'll be at a whole bunch of conventions this year. We'll be at Origins for sure. It will be our first time having a booth at Gen Con. And then I think after that will be PAX Unplugged. So the 3 big ones. Yeah. Have to be very
awesome.
picky and choosy.
This is very cool. Yes, absolutely. And Kathleen is saying that she'll also be at Origins, and I will also be at Origins. So
Yay.
we'll definitely have to meet up. Yeah, for sure. And it was really great chatting with you. Thank you for bearing with all of the technical issues. But I'm so glad we got to have this conversation and get to learn more about all the fun, awesome stuff that you're working on. And I'm sure we'll see you soon.
Yep. One mute and one lagging.
All right, bye. Okie dokie. Oh, well, this is a flawless show if I've ever seen one. Okay, so I'll just speak for Kathleen. This is like my dream come true. Kathleen is mute and I am speaking for her. This is amazing. She is saying, Pam, you are so awesome and the best co-host I've ever worked with. You're a fantastic designer. It's just, I can't handle it. I'm speechless. I'm literally speechless because Pam is so amazing. Okay. So, well, I guess what she was showing there was her game of the show. And she told me all about it already, so I can explain it for you. Was it Lieb and something? It was designed, I don't know who it was designed by, but it's about women getting suitors. Oh yeah, it's designed by 2 women. And it's all about women getting suitors and needing to find a man's, because you got to find a man's, and playing up that sort of trope. She says, great game. She thinks it's fantastic. Everyone should check it out. Look at the artwork. It's beautiful. Look at that player card. Love it. Is that like a spoon and a book and something? I don't know, but it looks pretty amazing. My game, I was gonna also give clues, and then if people watching want to guess, because Kathleen cannot speak. My game of the show, so what we're doing right now, for anyone who hasn't seen, is we're sharing games that we enjoy designed by a woman or gender non-conforming designer. And so mine, I always like to give clues. So the first clue is it was designed by Catherine Stoll, awesome designer. 2, it's a cooperative game where the group is trying to escape from a serial killer. And I guess Kathleen can still guess because you can write down your guess. But it's a very perfect theme for someone spending the night in a van by themselves in a dark forest all alone. Yes, that is correct. It was nyctophobia. Awesome. You didn't need the third clue, which is all the players wear blackout glasses so they can't see what's going on, but then the one player who's a killer can see. And I think she was inspired by her uncle, who is blind, and wanted to make a game that, someone who is blind could relate to and play. And I think it's really great. Catherine, I met her at Proto-TO last year. Very cool designer. So so that was my game. I'm glad, Kathleen, I thought maybe you had done that one already. So That's cool. And the artwork on the box is really cool. It's like all black, and there's like an axe with like blood coming down. It's really cool. All right. Well, thank you everyone for watching. And yes, Sarah Ship got it too. What's up, Sarah? Sarah's gonna be at a Playtest Fest in New Jersey in a few weeks, and she guessed Nyctophobia. That is correct. Sadly, Kathleen is so speechless because this show is so flawless. I'm looking forward to see what we'll be dealing with next show. I don't know what you're trying to tell me to say. I already talked about your game. Yeah, so everyone have a great night. Yes, we all love you. You're all fantastic. You're doing great. Everything is fine. Everything is fine. All right, gang. Oh, no, find us on YouTube and subscribe to us on YouTube. youtube.com/BoardGameBroadcast. We always forget that important part. And also, you can find me on Twitter at PartyHackGames, website partyhackgames.com. Kathleen is on Twitter at Mercury with 7 M's, I believe. And she also has a ton of resources. She talked about all of her gamification resources and resources for teaching game design and all that stuff. And that's on her website, which I think is KathleenMercury.com. Sweet. See, look, this is like a friendship test, and I think we passed it. All right, gang. Well, take it easy. I'm gonna go to sleep in my van and not die. Bye.